What's good, y'all? It's Casper. Today's video, I'm going to be talking about the movie Monsters Inc. Monsters Inc. is a 2001 film. It's a rated G and it's an hour and 32 minutes. Directed by Pete Docter. Without any introduction, in my opinion, is literally a top 10 Disney and Pixar film. This movie is so great that even Disneyland has its own section for Monsters Inc. In this movie, you do got the two buddies, Mike Wazowski and Sully Sullivan, best friends. They work for a company called Monsters Inc. What they do over there is that they enter doors and they scare little kids so that their city could be powered by their screams. Sullivan is one of the top tier monsters in that company, brings the most energy, and is just the most productive one at that company. At this company as well, you do have other monsters who have their own special talents, but the monsters that don't have like the scariest look, they help the ones that actually could pull it off. Ones that actually doesn't have the greatest intimidating force is Mike Wazowski. Mike Wazowski is more of like the nerd, the straightforward, and more of the motivator for Sullivan to get his game on, to become the top team in that company. While they're doing their job and getting all this electricity from the screams of the kids, a 3-year-old kid ends up coming into their world, and that 3-year-old is named Boo. Sully and Mike Wazowski are trying their best to keep Boo under the radar so no one finds out what's going on, even though she kind of got exposed to a lot of the monsters in that world. Now their job is to help Boo get back into her world without causing too much commotion. And during this process as well, you see a bond that's forming between Sully, Mike Wazowski, and Boo, without them even knowing that their bond is growing stronger and stronger. While they're doing that, you do have some slimy, snake moving type of monsters in here that are actually trying to be a little in their corruption world and bring the screams into their own powers and have a lot of the monsters work for them. And that's why you got Randall. Randall is one of those monsters that is top tier with Sully. So you got Sully and Randall, one of the strongest monsters that bring in the most energy into that city. Randall is more of the corruption, evil side in here. Boo is a main target for Randall. So that's what the movie is about. This is one of those dream projects that I would say if you were able to be a voice actor in, you would just have nothing but fun. You can go in any direction. Just make sure that you're putting that emotion out. This whole vibe of this movie, you can tell with a lot of the voice actors, they're just having nothing but a great time. One of those things you could just feel like you're in a golden era. First, the computer animation, even rewatching this, I think it was just holding up to a high standard as well. It didn't look very off at all. Literally eye-catching, eye-glued on the TV type of movie, especially with the environment that they're living in. The world in this movie for the monsters is pretty detailed. A lot of things could pass by you if you're not really paying attention. I really like how a lot of these monsters have their own personalities and they're all different from everybody else, but they relate to the human world as well. You got some monsters walking to work, some monsters literally taking a couple steps to work because they're so big, and then you got other monsters taking a bus or their own car to work. The monsters in here, all enjoyable. The environment is awesome to see, very relatable to the audience. Not only that, with the monsters, every voice for the monsters fits that character. Like Mike Wazowski or Sully Sullivan, I really like how their voice projection literally fits that whole persona. Let's start off with Mike Wazowski. Mike Wazowski from the get-go just absolutely just made me laugh with his look. Just having one eye, him being green, and the voice on point. The voice actor is Billy Crystal. Billy Crystal, phenomenal job on the voice acting, voice projection, and just making Mike Wazowski stand out in his own way, and you can see what direction he was trying to go for. Literally trying to break the records in that monster world. The lines for him were very top tier and very on point, and you can see that he's trying to just show off as well. You know, even though he doesn't have a scary look or have a scary roar or anything, he's still kind of egotistical, and it made me laugh as well because, you know, he's trying to get at another monster female in this movie.
I'm not a minute later.
Okay, sweetheart.
Think romantical thoughts.
You and me and you, both of us together.
And it's very funny how he's trying to play it off like he's a player. Overall, Mike Wazowski, he was just very funny. Seeing how Mike Wazowski's trying to be very smooth. It's one of those things that his personality in this movie is just going to be an eye-catching one, because he deals with a lot of people in here at work and his whole environment in general. Underrated lines as well. The fact that he's just a circle with an eye and just his arms and his legs sticking out, literally no body, it's made me laugh. Mike Wazowski was great. Did him dirty in those commercials. Even though it's the worst position, he's just happy to be there. Sullivan, played by John Goodman. John Goodman, another good projection voice acting from him. I think the lines for Sullivan were straight on point. You can definitely tell with his character that his attachment to Boo was more of a strong one. He's like a little big kid, warm, loving, caring heart, even though he's that intimidating force in this movie. Bond between him and Boo, he was waiting for something like that to happen in his life. Movie, you see the fact that he is a scary person without him even realizing it. Sullivan complimented Mike Wazowski and complimented the fact that even though you're a scary figure, you do have a caring heart and you do care for the people around you. Even though he's the biggest dude, didn't even have the biggest ego at all. And Mike Wazowski was the smallest dude with the biggest ego. Good detail to see where they're coming from besides working at that job. I really like how this movie showed personal characteristics. This movie really showed good emotion with the characters. So the lines show that they actually have a life besides being at work all the time. Overall, Sully Sullivan and Mike Wazowski are just memorable characters. Even though this movie is an hour and 32 minutes, flew by. The timing for this movie is straight on point. The movie is very adventurous, taking you to different places. Boo, voice acted by Mary Gibbs. Even though she doesn't have the craziest lines, Boo is super adorable in this movie. The whole look is definitely a child adorableness. They like what they did with Boo. Try to blend in with the monsters. Boo was one of those characters that you're gonna remember her just as much as Mike Wazowski and Sullivan. The fact that all these monsters are scared of just humans, and then when Boo just shows up to the world, it just added to this movie. Super adorable. Kids watching it are just gonna relate to Boo's character because Boo's just having the time of her life in that world. And even for the parents watching this movie, I'm pretty sure the fact that Mike Wazowski and Sullivan had to take care of Boo, a lot of the parents or a lot of the adults watching this movie could relate to what they're dealing with. Like, Boo is here one moment and then 10 seconds later is out the door, out of nowhere type of thing. So it's very relatable to the human world on dealing with kids. A lot of the adults watching this movie and be like, yup, that's my child. I know kids like that. Randall is played by Steve Buscemi. Steve Buscemi is one of my favorite underrated actors. Really like whenever I'm able to see a performance by him. But the fact that I knew that he was voice acting for Randall, I'm like, that's super perfect. Randall's so slimy, has really cool powers on being invisible. This is one of his top performances that I feel like it doesn't get talked as much, even though he's a voice acting. But this performance by Steve Buscemi is super memorable. He is definitely that character you want to hate. Really on point role. So really enjoyed that as well. There's a lot of characters in here with their screen time that is just going to add more funniness. It's going to add more adventure to this whole flow of the movie. It's going to be one of those things when the movie's over, you just bring up like, oh, do you also remember that character that dealt with Mike Wazowski? Or remember that character that dealt with Sully Sullivan? All perfect. They all fit for that world. The soundtrack in this movie, super phenomenal. I forget who worked on the soundtrack, but just added and complemented to the voice acting, to the action scenes in this movie that this movie has, and to the sad scenes. It's a good feeling, and you know with the soundtrack that you're gonna get an awesome movie. So that's the feeling I got from the soundtrack. It's just straight awesome, and it's adorable too. It just fits that whole vibe. After my watching the movie Monsters Inc. out of 10, I'm gonna have to give the movie a 10 out of 10. That's my movie review for the movie Monsters Inc. Shout out to you guys for tuning into the video. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Peace, y'all.